When I announced my pregnancy, my husband's parent declared, "I'll be raising the baby since you have no experience." My husband smiled and said, "It's just how things are done." I pulled out a legal document and said, "Good thing I already chose who gets custody." Their smirk disappeared as they read the paper in shock. When I found out I was pregnant, I was thrilled. My husband, Mark, and I had been trying for a while, and finally it happened. We lived in a quiet suburb of Chicago, close to his parents, Susan and Robert. I thought they'd be excited about the news. One Sunday, we invited them over for dinner. After the meal, I took a deep breath and said, "Mark and I have some news. We're expecting a baby." Susan's fork clattered onto her plate. She looked at me, then at Mark. "Well," she said slowly, "since you have no experience with children, I'll be raising the baby." I blinked, thinking I misheard. "Excuse me?" "It's just how things are done in our family," Susan continued. "The grandmother takes care of the firstborn to make sure they're properly raised." I turned to Mark, expecting him to object. Instead, he nodded. "Mom's right," he said. "It's our tradition." I felt a surge of anger and disbelief. "I appreciate your concern," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But Mark and I are the parents. We'll be raising our child." Susan's lips pressed into a thin line. "You don't know what you're doing. It's better this way." I took a deep breath. "Actually," I said, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a folder, "I've already made arrangements regarding custody." I placed the document on the table. Susan's eyes narrowed as she picked it up. "What is this?" "It's a legal document," I replied. "It outlines that, in the event something happens to me, my sister Rachel will be the legal guardian." Susan's face turned red. "You can't do this." "We're the grandparents. We have rights." "In Illinois, grandparents' rights are limited," I said calmly. "The courts prioritize the parents' wishes unless it's proven that the parents are unfit." Robert, who had been silent, finally spoke. "We just want what's best for the child." "So do we," I said. "And that means Mark and I will be making the decisions." Susan stood abruptly. "This isn't over," she snapped, grabbing her purse and storming out. Robert followed, casting a disappointed glance at Mark. After they left, I turned to Mark. "I can't believe you sided with them." He sighed. "I didn't think it was a big deal. It's just how my family does things." "Well, it's not how I do things," I said firmly. "I'm the mother. I decide how our child is raised." The next few weeks were tense. Susan called daily, offering unsolicited advice and insisting on being involved in every decision. I tried to set boundaries, but she continually overstepped. One evening, Mark came home looking uneasy. "Mom wants to throw us a baby shower," he said. "That's nice," I replied cautiously. "But?" "She has a guest list and plans. She didn't ask for our input." I sighed. "Mark, this is our baby. We should be the ones making these decisions." "I know," he said. "But it's hard. She's my mom. And I'm your wife," I reminded him. "Our family comes first." As the months went by, Susan's interference intensified. She'd show up unannounced, rearrange the nursery, and even bought a crib for her house, insisting the baby would be spending nights with her. One day, I came home to find Susan in our kitchen, cooking dinner. "Hello, dear," she said cheerfully. "I thought I'd help out since you'll have your hands full soon." I clenched my fists, trying to remain calm. "Susan, we've talked about this. You can't keep coming over uninvited." "I'm just trying to help," she said innocently. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I need space." "We need space." She huffed. "Fine. I can see when I'm not wanted." She grabbed her purse and stormed out. That night, Mark and I had a serious conversation. "Mark, this can't continue," I said. "Your mother is overstepping every boundary." "I know," he admitted. "But what can we do?" "We need to set firm boundaries," I said. "And you need to back me up." He nodded. "You're right. I'll talk to her." The next day, Mark sat down with his parents and laid it all out. He explained that while we appreciated their support, we needed to make our own decisions as parents. Susan was not pleased, but Robert seemed to understand. As my due date approached, Susan's visits became less frequent, though the tension remained. I focused on preparing for our baby's arrival, leaning on my sister and friends for support. Finally, the day came. After hours of labor, we welcomed our beautiful daughter, Lily, into the world. Holding her in my arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and protectiveness. When Susan came to the hospital, she reached out to take Lily from me. I hesitated but handed her over, watching closely. "She's perfect," Susan whispered, tears in her eyes. "She is," I agreed. "And she's ours to raise." Susan looked at me, a mixture of emotions crossing her face. "I just wanted to help." "I know," I said gently, "but we need to do this our way." From that day forward, things slowly improved. Susan learned to respect our boundaries, and Mark became more assertive in supporting me. It wasn't easy, but we navigated the challenges together. Parenthood is a journey, and while guidance from family can be invaluable, it's essential to stand firm in your decisions and protect your rights. After all, no one knows what's best for your child better than you do. A few weeks after Lily was born, things seemed calmer. Susan was keeping her distance. Mark was more helpful at home. I started to think maybe the worst was over. I was wrong. It started small. Diapers disappearing from the closet. Bottles missing from the kitchen. At first, I thought I was just exhausted and forgetful. But one night, I caught Susan sneaking into our garage. She had a key. I stood frozen, Lily in my arms, watching from the nursery window. She was carrying a bag. It looked like baby supplies. The next morning, I told Mark. "She what?" he asked, looking stunned. "She has a key, Mark. She's been coming into the house when we're not here." He rubbed his face. "She must think she's helping." "No," I snapped. "She's crossing every line." Again. Mark didn't say much after that. He just nodded. That scared me more than anything. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't mad. He was just quiet. I changed the locks the next day. That afternoon, Susan showed up banging on the front door. "You locked me out," she yelled. "Yes," I said. "You were coming in without permission." "I was checking on the baby." "That's not your job," I said. "You're not the mother." Mark came home and saw us mid-argument. Susan turned to him, teary-eyed. "She's shutting me out of my grandchild's life." Mark looked at her, then at me. "You shouldn't have gone into the house, Mom." That night, he slept on the couch. The next twist came 3 days later. I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. Susan had filed for grandparents' visitation rights. I stared at the paper in disbelief. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Mark read it over my shoulder. "I didn't know she was going to do this," he whispered. "Is she trying to take Lily from us?" I asked. "She just wants time with her," he said, but his voice was shaky. I called my sister, Rachel, in tears. "Get a lawyer," she said. "Now." So I did. And I documented everything. The uninvited visits. The stolen baby supplies. The argument at the door. Every text message, every voicemail. My lawyer said we had a strong case, especially with that legal custody document I had already filed. But it didn't stop Susan. She started posting on Facebook. Long, dramatic posts about how I was keeping a grandmother from her only grandchild. People started messaging me. Old neighbors. Distant cousins. Even coworkers. Some were supportive. Some weren't. I was called selfish. Cold. Controlling. I stopped going on social media. I stopped answering numbers I didn't recognize. Mark tried to talk to her. Tried to reason with her. But Susan was convinced she was the victim. And now, she was determined to win. The court date was set. I didn't sleep the night before. Neither did Mark. We sat in silence, our marriage hanging by a thread. And that was when I found it. The printout in Mark's work bag. It was an apartment listing near his parents' house. A 1-bedroom. Lease starting in 2 weeks. He was planning to leave. Or maybe not just leave. Maybe he was planning to take Lily. I waited until he came home. Held up the paper. "What is this?" He froze. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" He looked down. Mom offered to help. She said if things got worse between us, she could help me raise Lily. I felt like I'd been slapped. My stomach turned. You were going to take her, I said, voice shaking. You were going to take our baby. I didn't say that, he said quickly. I was just looking at options. I didn't say a word. I packed a bag for Lily and me and went to my sister's place. That night, I sat on Rachel's couch and watched Lily sleep. I felt numb, betrayed, furious, heartbroken, and I realized this fight wasn't over. It was just getting started. The next morning at Rachel's place, I sat with a hot cup of coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink. My phone buzzed every few minutes, calls from Mark, texts from Susan. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Then a knock at the door. Rachel looked out the window, then turned to me. It's Mark. I don't want to see him, I said. But Rachel, always the peacemaker, opened the door anyway. Mark looked like hell. Eyes bloodshot. Clothes wrinkled. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. I need to explain, he said, looking at me, not Rachel. Then talk, I said. But I'm not bringing Lily into this. She's my daughter too, he snapped. And you were planning to take her, I said, standing up. You don't get to play the victim now. Mark took a deep breath. I wasn't going to take her. I swear. That apartment? Mom pushed me into it. Said it'd be good to have a place nearby in case things fell apart. I didn't sign anything. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know how. I felt stuck. Between you and her. She makes everything sound so reasonable when she talks to me. Like she's just trying to help. She's manipulating you, Mark, I said. And you're letting her. He sat down heavily. I don't want to lose my daughter. Then grow a spine, I said. Because this isn't going away. I let him stay long enough to see Lily. I watched him like a hawk the entire time. Then Rachel walked him out. 2 days later, I got another legal notice. Susan wasn't just filing for visitation anymore. She was now claiming Mark had agreed she could be Lily's primary caregiver and that I was emotionally unstable. She submitted text messages, snippets of conversations taken out of context, photos of me looking tired, holding Lily with one hand and my phone in the other. She even sent in a screenshot of a Facebook post I'd made at 2 a.m. that just said, I can't do this anymore. It was from a bad night when Lily wouldn't stop crying. She made it look like I was unfit. My lawyer called me. She's going for temporary custody. We need to act fast. I remember sitting on the floor, my back against the wall, Lily sleeping next to me in her bassinet. Everything was crumbling. Rachel came home and found me like that. She didn't say anything. Just knelt down and hugged me. That night, I decided something. If Susan wanted a war, I'd give her one. I dug into everything. Every email, every voicemail, every comment she'd ever made about taking the baby. I printed the photo of her trying to unlock our door after I'd changed the locks. I got character statements from neighbors who saw her yelling at me outside our house. Even the daycare manager had seen Susan show up once, just to check, before Lily was even enrolled. But then, another twist hit. Mark filed a motion to separate. Not divorce. Legal separation. And in it, he listed Susan's address as his new residence. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just Susan. It was both of them. They were building a case together. He'd chosen her. I called my lawyer. We're going for full custody, I said. I don't trust either of them. She hesitated. It's going to get ugly. It already is. A week later, I sat in a courtroom. Lily was with Rachel in the hall. Mark sat across from me, eyes low. Susan sat beside him, smug, in a navy blue pantsuit like this was her victory parade. When the judge walked in, I felt like I was floating outside my body. I told the truth. Everything. I cried, but I didn't break. I read out loud the text Susan had sent me after we changed the locks. You can't keep me away forever. I will have her. She belongs with us. I played the voicemail where she told Mark she was grooming Lily early to get used to her new home. The judge listened, asked questions, and then Susan slipped. When she was asked about her relationship with me, she said, I've been preparing for this since the moment I found out she was pregnant. I knew she wouldn't last as a mother. There it was. Plain as day. And yet, the judge didn't rule that day. The court date was extended. They needed more evidence. More testimony. I left the courthouse exhausted, but not defeated. And just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, Rachel called me late that night. "I need to show you something." She sent a photo. A screenshot. It was from a parenting forum Susan had been posting on under a fake name. The posts were about rescuing her grandchild from an unfit, selfish mother. One post described how she had a plan with the father to slowly gain custody without alerting CPS. Susan had been documenting everything. Publicly. Anonymously. Or so she thought. We traced the username to her email through a recovery link she posted by accident. Rachel sent everything to my lawyer. Now I had proof, not just of control, but of a plan. A detailed, malicious plan. This wasn't just overbearing grandma territory anymore. This was premeditated. And I was done playing nice. A week later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office with Lily in her carrier next to me. My lawyer looked at the printouts from the parenting forum posts, her face tight. "This changes everything," she said. "We're going to file for a restraining order. And I want a full emergency custody hearing. No supervised visits. Nothing. We're going all in." I nodded. I didn't even feel scared anymore. I was past that. We filed. Susan was served the next day. According to Rachel, she had a full meltdown on her front lawn, screaming at the officer, yelling about how I was tearing her family apart. Mark, meanwhile, kept texting. "Please let's talk." I didn't know she was posting all that. "I'm sorry." Too late. The court date came fast. This time, it was different. We weren't in the small courtroom anymore. We were in the big one. There was a court-appointed child advocate, more lawyers, and more eyes. And Susan was quiet. Not smug. Not angry. Just pale. The judge started the hearing by reviewing the forum posts. The usernames. The recovery email. Then the judge asked Susan to confirm whether she had made the posts. She admitted she had. The courtroom went silent. My lawyer handed the judge one more piece of evidence. An audio clip. Susan's voice, telling someone over the phone, "I just have to wait until she makes a mistake. One big mistake. Then I can file for full custody and she won't see the baby again." The judge asked who she was talking to. She said, "Mark." My chest tightened. The judge turned to Mark. "Did you know about this?" Mark didn't answer. The judge pressed again. "Did you agree with this plan?" Mark looked down. "Not all of it. I didn't think it would go this far. But you didn't stop her," the judge said. He shook his head. I watched from across the courtroom. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask him why. Why he let her plan to steal our child. Why he stood by her side. The judge didn't need my words. He saw everything. He ruled that Susan was to have no contact with Lily. No visits. No phone calls. No letters. Nothing. A permanent restraining order was issued. Any attempt to contact us would be grounds for arrest. Then the judge looked at Mark. "You failed as a father and as a husband," he said flatly. "You allowed your mother to endanger your child's welfare. You stood by while she plotted custody theft. And you benefited from it." Mark tried to argue, but the judge cut him off. "You will have supervised visitation only once a month. At the court facility. For now, you are not a custodial parent. You have no say in her upbringing until this court is confident you can be trusted again." Mark looked like the floor had dropped out beneath him. I stared straight ahead. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just sat there, holding Lily's hand. When we walked out of the courtroom, Rachel was waiting. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said. "We did." That night, I sat with Lily in her nursery. I told her the truth, well, a version of it. "That woman will never touch you again," I whispered. "You're safe now." "And Mark?" He tried to send letters. Apologies. Promises to do better. I sent them all back unopened. Sometimes I wonder if I made mistakes. If I could have handled things differently. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I didn't fight hard enough for my marriage in the beginning. But then I remember, he didn't fight for me. Or for Lily. He let someone else try to steal our child. So no, I don't regret my choices. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting people back. It's about making sure they never get the chance to hurt you again. And I made damn sure of that.